Good morning. It's always good to see everybody, and I really like the Bills outfits that everyone has. Let's hope it's worth the good luck that we hope it brings. I was driving to a grocery store yesterday early in the morning. The sky was really gray and ominous, and I knew snow was coming, and I had the radio on, and I was listening to some excerpts from President Biden's speech from January 5th. It was a great speech. It was rousing. It was exciting. It was, just fabulous. So sitting in my car all by myself, I'm starting to applaud, and I'm applauding really loud, like, and then I gave a great big thing like that, which was all right. At which point, my not-so-smart watch started buzzing at me and said, "It seems you've had a hard fall." And I thought, well, it wasn't easy. I had, COVID in October, and, it's been hard. And do you want us to call 911? My watch is saying. I'm like, doing this to make it be quiet. No, I'm good. I haven't, toppled over. But then I thought, okay, we've all had a hard fall. And we've had a hard winter, and a hard summer and spring and winter before that. It's been hard. And I think that's why we come to church, right? Because here, for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, we get to be held in the camaraderie and connection of the people around us. This is what it's all about, community and support. And by being together, we have energy then to face what the world tosses at us. And hopefully, 2024 won't be so hard. But we'll talk more about that later. Welcome to our celebration of life. It is so good to be together with you again. Thank you.
Okay, our opening hymn is For All That Is Our Life, number 128 in the hymnals. And if we could have the singers come up and everyone stand as you are able.
Which we are called to use.
We are reminded that UUEA cannot do anything without members and friends showing up and supporting each other. We offer our sincere gratitude to those who participate in all ways that make this beloved community vibrant. We give thanks to those who attend events, volunteer their time, share their talents, and can be generous financially. If you are inclined to provide an offering after the service, there's a plate on the bookshelf at the back, or you may do so online at uuea.org. This is the time in our program when we strengthen our circle of connection with each other by sharing our personal joys and concerns. If anyone would like to share, please come and speak into the mic and I'll light a candle for you. If you are on Zoom, get into the chat. And now let's sing Spirit of Life, number 123 in the hymnal. Okay, and now it's time for the story. If you like squirrels, this one's for you. If any kids want to come forward, and if somebody could dim the lights. Do we need to skip it? What do you think, Rich?
What do you think about it?
Should we do it, or?
We've got an audience.
Yes, we should.
The Squirrels Who Squabbled by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. In a towering forest where summer had been, the cool air bit fresh and the mosses grew green, and as autumn edged in and the sky raged red, the sleepiest creatures got ready for bed, while up in a tree swung a flighty young squirrel who everyone knew as Spontaneous Cyril. Now, most foresty folk had seen to their needs through the plentiful months of mushrooms and seeds. They'd built up their stores so they'd all be well fed through the frosting of winter that glittered ahead. But Cyril, he lived in the now and the here. He adventured and partied his way through the year. So his cupboard was empty, his hollow was bare. He hadn't a mouthful of food anywhere. But wait, what was that? Over there, take a look. A single lone pine cone wedged in a nook. He squealed with delight, and for very good reason. For inside were the very last nuts of the season. But Cyril wasn't alone. There were more hungry eyes. Yes, plan ahead Bruce had his sights on the prize. Though he'd gathered a mountain of bounty hard fought, Bruce was convinced he was one pine cone short. I simply must have it, he wistfully cried, as he dreamt of the fresh, juicy pine nuts inside. So, as Cyril set off on his way to the ground, Bruce, he was also last pine cone bound. They sprinted and scurried with no time to gamble. They scratched at the bark in their scampering scramble. But their panic and haste shook the tips of the spruce, and the pine cone, it trembled, and then it came loose. Both squirrels gave chase at a lightning pace. This was the start of a wild, nutty race. It's mine, shouted Cyril. No, mine, hollered Bruce. You don't stand a chance. Give up, it's no use. I'm hungry, cried Cyril. This cone is not yours. Stay back, shouted Bruce. This cone's for my stores. It boinged over bushes and flew through the air. It beamed on the nose of a slumbering bear. It bounced over boulders, then came to a stop. Then teetered and wobbled and quivered and plop. Both squirrels followed. Oh, the water was fast. Would they learn that they needed each other at last? But each was intent on how he could win, so they didn't quite notice a bird sweeping in. Cyril and Bruce, they watched in dismay as their cone disappeared up, and away. Come back, shouted Cyril. There are nuts, exclaimed Bruce. But all hope was gone. It was simply no use. And meanwhile, they drifted right up to the ledge. Greed, it was driving them over the edge. Cyril and Bruce, they had taken a fall. They were paying the price for wanting it all. They'd squandered their chances to team up and share. Would their nutty young hopes simply end in despair? Bruised and bedraggled, they swept past dry land. Cyril grabbed at a branch with a trembling hand. Catching Bruce with the other, he heaved and he huffed and dragged him to safety with panting and puffs. They stared at the sky, quite lost in deep thought, until Bruce looked at Cyril and let out a snort. Oh, how silly we are, he proclaimed, all a jiggle. How greedy I've been, spluttered Bruce with a giggle. We shall change from today. May the squabbling cease. We should celebrate, seeing we're both in one piece. From that day and forward, they made a great pair. They would gather together and found they could share. Yes, Cyril and Bruce, they knew in the end, the best thing to share is a laugh with your friends.
All right, everybody. So if your age is 4 to 13, you can join us upstairs for our children's program, where we'll be exploring the monthly theme of liberating love, which is different than just feeling good because somebody loves you, but it's the push and the pull to get you to find your inner values and pursue them, like the two squirrels did, right? And realize that they could be friends and get more out of life. So all the kids, let's go. Come on, let's go. You're going to do some drawing today. That's good.
Okay, now please welcome Reverend Tina Simpson back for today's program.
Anybody else want to go up with the kids? And that sounds like fun. I'm going to move this just a little. Otherwise, I'm going to hit it. Okay. I'm going to begin today by reading a poem don't mind me as I rearrange everything. A poem by Mary Oliver. It's called The Last Buddha's Instruction. Make yourself a light, said the Buddha before he died. I think about this every morning as the east begins to tear off its many clouds, to send up the first signal, a white fan streaked with pink and violet and even green. An old man, he lay down between two salad trees, and he might have said anything, knowing it was his final hour. The light burns upward. It thickens and settles over the fields around him. The villagers gathered and stretched forward to listen. Even before the sun itself hangs disattached into the blue air, I am touched everywhere by its ocean of yellow waves. No doubt, he thought of everything that had happened in his difficult life. Slowly, beneath the branches of the tree, he raised his head and looked into the faces of the frightened crowd. Make of yourself a light, said the Buddha. Here ends today's reading. Okay, folks, we're going to start the sermon this morning with a quiz. It's easy, one question. On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 12 drummers drumming. You got it. All right. They heralded the end of the Christmas season, and last night was 12th night. Now, as a child growing up in a semi-religious but extremely Italian Catholic family, Christmas didn't end until January 6th, the feast of the Epiphany, the 12th night. This day, according to the Christmas myth, was the day that the wise men arrived from Bethlehem, bringing gifts to the newborn baby called Jesus. Now, in my family, Christmas decorations never came down before January 6th. And on the Sunday closest to the feast day, we had one more celebration. It was quieter than Christmas and New Year's, when our house was just brimming with people, and celebrations seemed to go on for hours and hours. The Epiphany celebration was only for our close family, kind of a reconnecting to the core after an influx of so many family members and friends. My Aunt Rose and my mom would make a special cake for the occasion. It was called the King's Cake. Now, inside the cake, my mom and aunt would place a large dried fava bean. They're big, like that. You can't choke on them. The cake was yeasty and rich. It had all kinds of fruit and nuts in it, and it was presented on a plate with a gold paper crown on top. My mom would cut the pieces large and with great ceremony and anticipation, because whoever received the piece with the bean in it was blessed, and everyone cheered. We understood that that person would take an important journey in the new year, and that while on that journey, she would always have enough love, enough light to guide her path, and enough food to eat, which of course was very important to Italians. The family would ask the lucky traveler where she thought she might travel, and they would ask the other part of the ritual, which was perhaps the more important. What gift would she bring on her journey to offer to the world? What did she hope for in the future? Now, all members of the family had an equal chance to get the magical bean, and once acquired, they all had the same holy obligation to offer their gift. One year, my little brother found the bean in his cake, and just being 5 years old, he vowed to travel to the corner store all by himself. And since he had just learned how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, he would offer that gift to the world and to anyone who asked for one. Such a humble offering, and everyone cheered. Now, there's not a lot of information in the Christian Bible about the kings. In fact, they're not written into the Gospel of Matthew until 200 years after the birth of Jesus. And in the original Greek text, they're not kings at all. They're wise men, perhaps teachers, but not kings and people of state. Everything we've come to know about them, their name, their royalty, well, it's all part of an expanding myth created over millennia. But myths and ancient stories belong to all of us. They're an expression of our collective hunger to understand our own journey, our own evolution. This story tells us that these wise men traveled a long way. They came from the east, from Persia, from India, from Egypt. They were guided by an unfamiliar star in the sky, a star that lit their way in the darkness and promised hope and liberation. They journeyed into the night, not knowing what they would find, yet eager for the promise of deliverance. They brought worldly gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, gifts fit for a king, perhaps, but not for a baby boy and his exhausted parents. They trusted this holy star to guide their journey, to offer enough light so that they could find their way. Friends, we stand at the beginning of 2024, ahead of an awesome journey. There appears no holy star to guide us, no promise of enough light to direct our path. I don't know about you, but I'm a bit wary of 2024. Well, maybe I'm actually a lot wary of 2024. I mean, what if we just don't want to take those first few steps into this next year? What if we don't believe that there will be liberation and hope at the end of our journey? What if we're already exhausted by the conditions of our world? What if we're convinced there won't be enough light, enough love to help us find our way? We know that times are treacherous ahead of us. We don't know if democracy will win. We don't know if the bills will win. We don't know if the refugees entering our country will find asylum and safety. We don't know if climate change will finally turn into climate calamity, and perhaps it already has. What if the journey just seems too hard and we are already exhausted? We start this year of 2024 with the worship theme of liberating love. And while facing all these uncertainties, it might be really hard to find what love has to offer us during such turbulence. But there's another story about the gifts of the season that's perhaps more relevant to our worship theme and even to our world today. It's the gift of the Magi, a story written by O. Henry. Now, maybe you remember it. I actually remember it more from Sesame Street, when Ernie sold his rubber ducky and Bert sold his paperclip collection in order to give gifts to one another. In the original story, a young couple deeply in love but financially poor each sacrifice precious possessions to raise money to give gift to the other. The husband sold an heirloom pocket watch to buy his wife a set of combs for her beautiful long hair. And the wife, whose beautiful hair was her pride and joy, had her hair cut and sold her hair to buy her husband a gold chain for his watch. Now, this is more than a story of a young couple who give up their greatest treasures in order to buy gifts for one another. It's a story about sacrifice and the value of love being much greater than anything else we can offer one another. And perhaps that's where we will find this liberating love. Perhaps this kind of love will solve the exhaustion we feel. Perhaps it will bring light on our way forward into 2024. On January 1st, psychologist and professor Adam Grant wrote an op-ed piece for the New York Times. It was titled, "That Numbness You Feel?" There's a word for that. I was immediately drawn to the column as I was feeling quite numb lately. He wrote about the concept of empathic distress, which is the feeling we get when faced with a constant barrage of turmoil, destruction, and terror without the ability to do anything about it. Sound familiar? We can rail, we can rage, we can cry, we can truly feel the pain of others, and yet we're often unable to find a way to have a significant impact. It seems nothing we do could make a difference. We cannot change the situation. Here's what he wrote. Empathic distress explains why many people have checked out in the wake of recent tragedies. The small gestures they could make seem like an exercise in futility. Giving to a charity feels like a drop in the ocean. Posting on social media is poking a hornet's nest. Having concluded that nothing they do will make a difference, they start to become indifferent. I think many of us feel this way at the beginning of our journey in 2024, and I know this from members of my Soul Matters groups, from friends and families. Many of us have felt this for a while now, and most of us can't seem to find our way out. A newer concept, empathic distress, was once called compassion fatigue. And it was originally noticed in medical professionals, in counselors, and in teachers. It was as if they simply got overwhelmed with circumstances of their job and got tired of caring, so they shut down. Psychologists saw it as a defense mechanism that was, at times, useful. Caring for others, they proposed, was simply too costly. But compassion fatigue is a misnomer. Caring doesn't cost us anything. Not being able to do something about the suffering of others, well, that costs us dearly. It wastes our energy, our heart, and it makes us exhausted, and consequently, we tend to shut down. Now, although these concepts of empathy and compassion are often used interchangeably, they're actually very different. Empathy is when we absorb the pain and emotions of the other as our own. I'm hurting for you. We feel it in our heart and in our bodies. The pain is not really ours, but it's really there, and its effects are visceral. Compassion, on the other hand, focuses our attention and emotions on the other. It's more helpful, this approach. I see that you're hurting, and I'm here for you. It's not absorbing another's pain, but noticing it, witnessing it, and offering comfort. It's offering love that liberates us and them, if only for a few moments. We may see this as too simple a solution to today's problems, but kindness and caring are the only lights that can liberate us from the numbness that results from the constant turmoil of the world. Compassion is powerful, And it isn't about eliminating another person's distress, but acknowledging it. And that's huge. When we can't make someone feel better, we can make them feel seen. The author Adam Grant, in his article, wrote this about his experience of being seen. Here's what he said. Excuse me. In the midst of the recent turmoil on college campuses, he's a professor, I got an email out of the blue from an old friend named Sarah. Recognizing the impact on me and my students, she wrote, "Nothing more to say, really. Nothing more than I just wanted to send along a great big hug. And I just wanted to remind you that I love you and your family so very much." She added, "If I ever can be an ear to talk to, I'm all in." It warmed my heart to know she was thinking of us, he wrote. There's another side of offering compassion and kindness, a side that we might not expect. It's one of the strongest antidotes to feeling helpless. Offering compassion makes us feel useful, and that helps us stay present to the moment. Research proves this, according to Adam Grant, but I can attest to this myself. In the wake of the Hamas-Israeli war, I worried for a friend and her family who live in Tel Aviv. I worried for my niece, who works at the Anti-Defamation League in New York City, and I was devastated for my friend, the imam at the Islamic Center in Rochester. And then I thought, what could I possibly do or say that would make a difference? And I didn't do anything. The whole situation was totally enormous, and it seemed impossible to me. The nightly news was gut-wrenching, and any attempt I could make seemed futile. I confess I was immobilized. After reading this article on New Year's Day, I decided to write notes and to call my friends and my niece. I wrote emails, I wrote handwritten notes. I took my lead from Adam Grant's friend, and I said simply, I know this is horrible. I love you. I have a good set of ears, if you could use them. I stopped watching the news constantly, and instead I shifted to understand the complexities of the situation. And then the circle widened. Over the past week, I've been sending out notes and emails to other friends I knew were suffering, not only from the wars, but from other challenges, illness, grief during the holidays. Sometimes I simply said, I'm holding you in my heart today. Friends, I no longer felt helpless. I know these were not grand gestures, but perhaps it's not grand gestures that have the greatest impact. At difficult times, we can widen the circle of compassion, and each gift, no matter how humble, is of equal value in this tattered world. Let me say that one more time. Each gift, no matter how humble, is of equal value. It takes an ecosystem of human support to shift the evolution of humankind, and we need this shift. Now, I don't mean to imply that this is the only gift, that kindness and compassion is going to get us out of all of the challenges of the world we're facing in 2024, but we have lots of gifts. And if we're not exhausted, we have the capacity to do them. Some of us are those frontline responders who can quickly organize resources to make a difference. Some of us are healers who tend to the suffering of others with practical support and an open heart. Some of us are storytellers and artists who bind the past with the present and shed light on what is possible, because don't we need to see what could possibly be different? Some of us are bridge builders who can work across divisions with patience and compassion. I wish I could do that more than I can. Some of us are proud disruptors who speak up and take action. Some of us are caregivers who provide nourishment, concern, and love. Some of us are visionaries with the ability to connect us to the holy star even when we can't clearly see into the night sky. And some of us make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and feed our families and our neighbors and our church community. None of us can or should offer all these gifts or expect ourselves to offer all these gifts. But we will find ourselves able to do what we can. Or this year we might be the receiver of the gifts, accepting compassion that is freely giving and allowing liberating love to keep our hearts open. What if then, friends, offering one another compassion really is the answer to our exhaustion? What if love and kindness are the guiding lights we need to walk together into this new year? May it be so, and amen.